Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Ballabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Ballabha Girivardhari. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Banacharya. Yamuna Tira Banacharya. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Ballabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Ballabha Girivardhari. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Banacharya. Yamuna Tira Banacharya. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pariravajakshara Sutal Satashishi Maharish Divine Grace Aboy Charan Aravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Shal Hari Rasta Kori Ki Prem Sekaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhana Ki Vrindavan Dhamma Ki Maipur Navadvip Dhamma Ki Jagannath Puri Dhamma Ki Gangamai Ki Jamunamai Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulsi Maharani Ki Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 12, Creation of the Kumaras and Others, text number 6. Sovadyata sutair evam. Sovadyata sutair evam. Pratyakyatanushasanahai. Pratyakyatanushasanahai. Krodam durvisaham jatam. Krodam durvisahas jatam. Niyatum upachakrame. Niyatum upachakrame. Sovadyataha sutair evam. Pratyakyatanusasanahi. Krodam durvisaham jatam. Niyatum upachakrame. Vajataha sutair evam. Pratyakyatanusasanahi. Krodam durvisaham jatam. Niyatam upachakrame. Sovadyataha sutair evam. Pratyakyatanusasanahi. Krodam durvisaham jatam. Niyatum upachakrame. Vajyata sudaya evam. Pratyakyanusasanahi. Krodam durvisaham jatam. Niyatum upachakrame. Saha, he, Brahma. Avadyataha, thus being disrespected. Sutahi, by the sons. Evam, thus. Pratyakyata, refusing to obey. Anushashanahi, the order of their father. Krodam, anger. Durisaham, too much to be tolerated. Jatam, thus generated. Niyatum, to control. Upachakrame, tried his best. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. On the refusal of the sons to obey the order of their father, there was much anger generated in the mind of Brahma, which he tried to control and not express. Please repeat. On the refusal of the sons to obey the order of their father, there was much anger generated in the mind of Brahma, which he tried to control and not express. Brahma is the director in charge of the mode of passion of material nature. Therefore, it was natural for him to become angry on the refusal of his sons to obey his order. Although the Kumaras were right in such acts of refusal, Brahma, being absorbed in the mode of passion, could not check his passionate anger. He did not express it, however, because he knew that his sons were far enlightened in spiritual advancement, and thus he should not express his anger before them. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master, he forced my eyes open with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. Therefore I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. On the refusal of his sons to obey the order of their father, there was much anger generated in the mind of Brahma, which he tried to control and not express. Lord Brahma, the creator of the material universe, creates from his mind. His mind is situated in the mode of passion. He has that inclination to get things done, to make things move. He has the blueprint, he has the backup, he has the support of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His plans don't always go as he imagines they would. And sometimes he has to do, as we were hearing in previous verses, he has to create things which are distasteful for a person in his position. He's a devotee, he's soft-hearted, he's compassionate, he's kind, he wants to do good for the living entities. But unless they are cooperative, unless they are prepared to follow a standard mode of practice in terms of spiritual life, then they get distracted and they become wayward. So the facilities he created prior to this verse, he created the different types of illusion. When the living entity falls from the spiritual world, initially in the spiritual world we're all pure. You can't be in the spiritual world unless you're completely pure. But there's a circumstance where you cultivate, you foster a little seed of envy, and that forces you, the living entity, to leave the spiritual world. The first port of call, when you descend from the spiritual world, is the position of Lord Brahma. that level. At that stage, you have the opportunity to repent, to give up that envy, to give up that desire to be separate from the Lord, and to go back to the spiritual world. If not, at that point, then you're supplied with a defects package, which helps you to function in the material world. You've come to the material world because of the desire to enjoy separately and to control. You can't enjoy something unless you have it under your control. So to control separately from Krishna and then to try and enjoy it. So the defects are 4 principal defects. Can you say any of those? Propensity to cheat, and then after that to make mistakes. Any other? There's 2 more. Imperfect senses, and to be subject to illusion. Caritamrita Swami, he said in the class previously, if you think that what your senses are telling you is the truth, and if you act upon that, then you're an illusion. You're subject to pride. I know what's going on because my senses are telling me. The mind is therefore telling me. The mind is the master of the senses. So we get these 4 defects. And these help us to function in the material world where we're trying to imitate the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Brahma, he created these things. It was a distasteful task, but out of obedience to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he's a devotee. He has to follow the plans. He's the engineer. He's not the architect. He's the secondary creator. So he goes ahead and he performs that function, does it very, very well, completely provides all the facilities for the living entity to come into the material world and to try and express and appreciate a position separate from the Supreme Lord, as the Supreme in their own rights. Now he's turning to another type of creation. He wants to create high-class living entities who are not going to be subject to such a condition. So his sons, born from his mind, born from his contemplation, when parents are desiring to conceive a child, in Krishna consciousness, the first preparation is to prepare the consciousness, to purify the mentality. So the Govardhana samskara is recommended. In ISKCON, then that's expanded on or reduced to having a meditative day, contemplating what qualities you want your child to possess. And in order to purify your heart so that your mentality, your desires can be more pure, more Krishna conscious, then at least we try and chant 50 rounds of the Hare Krishna mantra in order to purify the consciousness, so that at the time of conception, then a highly elevated soul can enter into the combination of the semen and the egg. So Lord Brahma, he is generating from his own mind living entities, and he's generating these sons. Brahma is a devotee, but he's tinged with the mode of passion. In charge of the mode of passion. He's absorbed in the mode of passion. He's working with the mode of passion. The way the devotees are working, as recommended in the Gita, is that we should understand that the modes are always vying for supremacy. They're always going to be acting. You can't be free from the modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. So, understanding those modes, Bhagavad Gita chapter 14 describes the modes, and it says one who understands this chapter, this is a very high knowledge. To understand and to be able to identify the modes, rather than acting under the control of the modes of material nature. When one has a little bit more self-realization, awareness, one's more purified, then one learns to work with the modes. Early in the morning, the mode of goodness is more prominent, so we have the opportunity to practice meditation, to hear and to chant, to remember. And then as the sun rises, then the mode of passion starts to heat us up, and we start to feel a little bit uneasy. We're not peaceful so much anymore. So better time to get involved in activities, to start to engage in positive activity. And then later on in the day, towards the end of the day, as the dusk settles in and the darkness is there, and we've had a full day, then the mode of goodness, the mode of ignorance is there. Mode of goodness can still be there in our consciousness. We can attend the evening program, we can remember Krishna, we can chant and dance for the pleasure of the Lord, but still we should be aware that the mode of ignorance is there, and there's not much need, not much sense in trying to extend the day. Mode of ignorance is setting in. Let's take rest. Take rest early, and so we can then get up again when the next Brahma Muhurta hour is coming, the Mangalati time is there, and the mode of goodness will be there, and we can work in accord with that. So Lord Brahma, he's tinged with the mode of passion. He's very highly elevated, the topmost living entity in the material universe. Still, he's working with the mode of passion. So if you need to work with something, then you need to understand it. You need to be connected with it. Arjuna, he was incited by Krishna to become angry, because you can't fight. You can't fight without a bit of anger, without a bit of aggression, without a bit of oomph, bit of violence. You can very carefully try and pull apart a piece of furniture, but sometimes it needs a little bit of a whack, a little bit of transcendental passion in order to get things moving. So to work with the mode of passion, not controlled by the mode of passion. Here in the act of creation, then Lord Brahma, he's created these four wonderful sons, the Kumaras, and he's the father, he's got some expectations, you should obey my order. But they refuse. It's said that there's a couple of circumstances in the ashram and in the home where you can refuse to follow the desire, the order of the family, the father. And one of them is in the question of you should get married. You can refuse if you have the adhikar, if you have the mood, if you're feeling satisfied, as described in the previous verse, and you want to just engage in devotional service. Lord Brahma had another son, Priyavrata Maharaj, and he was engaged totally in devotional service, fully in devotional service. But at that time there was nobody qualified to manage the universe. So he was requested to take on that role. He refused. And finally, he wasn't Lord Brahma's son, he was Manu's son. Right? So Manu tried to insist that he took on that role, and then Lord Brahma himself came and encouraged him. You take on that role, you perform that function, and I promise you that in due course of time, devotional, it will be there throughout your Grihastha ashram, and it will also be available more when you've finished with the Grihastha ashram. So he took on that role, he performed his Grihastha duties in an exemplary fashion, but when time came, he returned to devotional service. He renounced his family and he got back to pure devotional service. So it's okay. The Kumaras were right in refusing Lord Brahma's request, and they maintain themselves as lifelong brahmacharis, no older than 5 years. They're 5 years. They maintain their external form as 5-year-old children, brahmacharis. Despite the fact that they are very, very elevated, topmost sadhus, sages. So they put Lord Brahma in a situation under some certain circumstances, and within his mind he just became extremely angry. Here the word used is durvishaham, too much to be tolerated. It's anger and tolerance, to tolerate anger. The devotee is expected to be very tolerant, extremely tolerant, more tolerant than a tree. A tree, you go up, you break its limbs off, you don't feed it, you carve your initials in it, just stands there, offering shelter, offering shade, offering fruit, offering everything. So, but for a gentleman, at a certain point, there's just too much. You can't tolerate it. One of our spiritual masters, he appeared at the airport and there's nobody there to greet him. So eventually, an hour late, after a few phone calls, some devotees arrived and they were all apologetic. Oh, you must have been so upset. You're we're so sorry. You must be very, very angry. And his response was, that's okay. I can tolerate anything, but don't push me. There's a certain level that is reasonable. And Lord Brahma, being a intelligent and elevated soul, he understood, even though that passion, that anger was welling up inside, that it was not the right circumstances in which to express. Just to let anger and passion fly out can have devastating effects, can really wreak havoc. And somebody who's a little bit conscious, they'll understand, oh, this person's just blowing a fuse. in the army in the early days, I don't know whether it's modern speak now, that such individuals who were exploding all the time, who had short fuses, who were blowing up, they were said to have a disease, and they shortened it, was SOL, which means stool on the liver. The liver's dirty, and so you just can't control yourself. You get very angry. So Lord Brahma, he managed to control himself, but as we see in the next couple of verses, even though he tried to deal with it, it still came out. Not in this this present circumstance. The Kumaras they weren't the brunt. They didn't receive the brunt of his anger, but in another way it came out. So nowadays, there's different ways to deal with anger. They have anger management classes and things like that, where you learn to examine what you're angry about, why you... And anger, you've got to do something with it. Just try and tone it down. Try and do other things to not get angry. It doesn't work. It doesn't work unless you change your inherent mode that you're under, the nature that you're living in. Only when one is more capable of accessing the mode of goodness, or one is in the more purified state, can that anger be dovetailed and used. Hanuman, he was tormented. He became very angry and upset. He was in Ravan's kingdom, and he'd gone there to challenge Ravan. He'd allowed himself to be tied up by Ravan's soldiers, and they went and saw Ravan. And Ravan chastised him and then decided to punish him. So part of the punishment was to set his tail on fire. So he managed to escape from the bonds, and with the tail on fire, he thought, okay, I'm upset with this guy, I'm upset with his whole kingdom. He's given me an excuse, I'm a monkey after all, so I'll get up to some nonsense. So with his tail on fire, he started jumping from roof to roof, and wherever his fire and his tail landed, everything would burst into flames. So he properly used his anger. Anger should be used against the enemies of Krishna, not just willy-nilly, not just spontaneously and everywhere. It can be controlled. Srila Prabhupada, he was in a big pandal. He was on the stage, and the organizers, they were expecting something from the devotees. The previous night, the devotees had turned on the magic, and everybody was in ecstasy. So this night, it's not so easy to replicate such a thing. The organizers, they saw that there was a kirtan going on stage. The devotees were singing and dancing, and they came up close to the edge, and they wanted to get the devotees to jump down into the audience. So they started grabbing at devotees, and Prabhupada saw. So from his position, where he was sitting and playing cartels, he jumped up and he started swinging the cartels in the face of the person who was creating the mischief, to just tell them to back off. And a display of anger. But in the next moment, leading the kirtan, and if you weren't quick, you wouldn't have noticed such a burst, an outburst. So it can be used. And when it's used properly against the enemies of Krishna, against the enemies of devotional service and Krishna consciousness, then it has its own effect. If you meet a demon, to just lay down and just accept their input, then later you'll become very frustrated. So sometimes it's necessary to kill them, to kill their mentality, to outwit them, to use some strategy to avoid getting affected by such an outburst. So anger can be used properly for Krishna. when it's used against the enemies. Those who are on our side, if they're not agreeing with your plans, you don't have to blow them out of the water. You don't have to chastise them for no reason at all. You don't have to destroy them. You can use that anger in a different way. Ultimately, we also understand that anger comes about because of there's a chain of events. Bhagavad Gita chapter 262 describes Jayato visam pumsam sangateshu sanjayate sangat sanjayate kama kamat krodo bijayate. Krodo is anger. So while contemplating the objects of the senses, one develops attachment for them. And from such attachment, lust develops. And when lust is not satisfied, frustration and anger. And then if you allow the anger to foster, then anger will become, your memory, your intelligence will become bewildered. And when your intelligence is bewildered and your memory is lost, then you fall down again into the material whirlpool. So for a devotee, understanding that chain of events, the secret is at the point of contemplation, to nip it in the bud. Oh, if I contemplate this, if I become attached to this, if I start to harbour this desire, then it's going to lead to this and this and this. Mode of passion always leads to distress. So we should understand, I'm contemplating this, stop contemplating. Stop. Turn your attention elsewhere. Elevate your consciousness. Arjuna, he asked Krishna, why am I impelled to acts against my own desire, as if by force? And Krishna's answer was, Kama esha, Krodha esha, Rajaguna, Samudbhavaha, Mahasano Mahapapna, Vidhenam iha varinam. It is lust, and lust alone, which is born from the contact of the mode of passion. And this is the greatest sinful enemy of mankind. We should learn to recognize and control and avoid these situations. And then our original love for Krishna can develop rather than becoming degraded into lust, frustration, anger. So the ultimate solution is to spend as much time as possible, as much of our energy as possible, hearing and chanting, and in that way contacting the mode of transcendental goodness. And slowly, as it's described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Srinvatam Swakata Krishnam Punya Sravana Kirtanam Hridyantastoy Badrani Vidunoti Sritatam. Sri Krishna, who is the Paramatma, the supersoul in the hearts of all living entities, he cleanses the desire for material enjoyment. Cleanses from those who hear and chant. Those who hear and chant his glories. And then by regularly hearing, it's not just one, you have to hear regularly as much as possible. And attendance in the class. Then all that is troublesome to the heart is practically destroyed to nil. And loving devotional service is established as an irrevocable fact. And then by hearing more and more and more, then those modes, they become pacified. Tadara just tamo bhava. The modes of passion and ignorance, they subside. And one can be more and more situated in the mode of goodness. So we understand what happened. Lord Brahma, even though he's the topmost, he's showing us that it's very difficult to control. It's very difficult to overcome the modes. Daiviyesha gunamayi mama maya dhiratya. This divine energy mind consisting of the three modes of material nature is very difficult to control. Very difficult to overcontrol. The mind is very difficult to control. Practically impossible. Arjuna describes just like the wind. Chanchalam hi manaha Krishna pramati balavadriram tasyaham manya. It's just, so how is it possible? The recommendation is regulated practice and a proper diet. Proper medicine, the medicine is chanting Hare Krishna, and the diet is associating with devotees, taking Krishna prasadam. Don't put things into us which are going to create a negative, ignorant, passionate result. There's certain things we can control. We can control what water we take, when we take, how much we take, what food we choose to ingest, what mood we want to be in, who we associate with. We can choose these things. So by choosing these things properly, then we can avoid being captured by the modes of ignorance and passion. And slowly, slowly, slowly elevate our consciousness, elevate our situation, to go and take anger management, to go and take some psychological help, other things like that. They're just band-aid solutions. The real solution is to cleanse the heart, to purify ourselves, to engage in Krishna consciousness. And to recognize who can help us. Lord Brahma, he recognized the Kumaras were more spiritually advanced. So he didn't upset them, he allowed them to go along with his path, on their path. And he tried to control himself. So Lord Brahma, he's the head of our sampradaya. He's giving lessons. He goes through many different situations, and we need to learn from them. That even such a great soul can have problems, and ultimately the solution is to take shelter of higher association, higher knowledge, good intelligence, and Krishna consciousness. So does anybody have any questions, any comments? Try to control his anger and not express it. Anger's there.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for the class. In regards of managing passion, you were mentioning that Lord Brahma, and everyone needs a bit of passion to get things, going and making things happen. But at the same time, you are identifying, as Krishna is condemning, the effects of passion. So how to know how much passion, it's enough, so we don't get in trouble by committing mistakes, offenses, etc.
To learn from experience how much passion is enough and how much is too much. You have to know who you're dealing with. You have to know who you are, self-realization. You have to know what is your position, if it's your duty to engage in. Prabhupada, he would often chastise his disciples. He would get angry. But then he would also embrace them and support them. And he would say, don't mind, it's my duty. If somebody doesn't chastise you, then you'll get into trouble. You'll get carried away. So you can do that if they are your dependents, if they are your responsibility. If not, then best not to get involved in such situations where you are upset and where you are disturbed. Go to an authority and request them. Just like if there's a situation where we're in danger, where we need to call for the security, or we need to take things into our own hands, better to call the police. They're much better equipped to deal with such situations. But it's handy. The devotees should be trained in self-defense. They should be not just weak. They should be able to use whatever they have within their means. Obviously, even the security people, they're trained that when we're dealing with somebody, they'll try and talk them out of it. Go and sit down. Go and this is unreasonable. If you continue to push the ante, then we'll call you the police, and then obviously the police will put you in jail. It's like that. So there's what's called diplomacy. There's 4 limbs to diplomacy. And using force and anger that way, that's the last limb. That's the last thing we try. So first we should use sweet words. If that doesn't work, then there should be divide, give gifts, and then lastly, argumentum ad vacuum. So we have to be learned. We have to understand the different principles of how to deal in such circumstances. In terms of getting things done, we have experience that you have to persevere. If you want to get things done, you've got to persevere until it's complete. So you need to push yourself. You can push yourself and just be persistent and to maintain that energy. But to push others, if they're not in the same headspace, if they're not in the same capacity, then it's like a waste of energy. Sometimes people that we're trying to organise, we have a job to do, we have a big task to do, we're trying to rally support, but then we lose all of our energy and all of our inspiration because people are not of the same. So it's better to cultivate the soil a little bit, encourage people to get them mentally on the same page. And then once people have volunteered, you volunteer, then you should accept the responsibility. But people don't know how to accept that responsibility. So it's how much you have to understand the circumstances you're in, what's going on at the time, and whether it's appropriate. There are other means to achieve results apart from being like a bull in a china shop and just bursting in and you can achieve your result, but you've destroyed everything along the way. Anger always leads to frustration, unless it's controlled anger, unless it's used in a positive, in a loving way.
What else? Another point that you raised was that sometimes people have problems with anger, and then they go for anger management, etc. And you say that it doesn't work. I have seen that it works sometimes, but I don't know if your angle is that it doesn't work permanently, maybe. So one Yadu Prabhu, temple president in Perth, he said that if you are too much in passion, do something in goodness. For example, clean, or wake up earlier, or give charity, or be grateful. And I have seen in my line of work that it does help.
Sure.
So when you say it doesn't work, does it mean that at some point we're going to get back into like you were mentioning in the beginning, that Krishna says that the modes are always in what's called fighting for supremacy, in competition. Can you elaborate a little on that?
Nothing works in this world without Krishna consciousness. Nothing works without the blessings of Lord Chaitanya. I think that was the last of the couple of verses ago. Anything of sustained spiritual value. All of these great sages became great devotees, for without devotional service to the personality of Godhead, one cannot achieve success in any activity of spiritual value. So, yes, temporarily, obviously applying intelligence and good ideas and managing things rather than things becoming unmanaged, out of control, there is some success. But for ultimate success, then we have to apply the principles of Krishna consciousness, the principles of devotional service. And that's where anything actually does have any success, because some of those principles have been accessed. Nothing works in the material world unless there's Krishna consciousness there, Krishna conscious principles. Ultimately, everything is like there's a temporary veneer that actually this person's happy, they're wealthy, but it's only superficial. It's only superficial. So the ultimate thing is to understand that we can remember Krishna, we can keep our consciousness focused on the real goal of life, and in the meantime, these other things we have to tolerate. Vacho vegam, manasa krodha vegam. In order to actually be successful, you have to learn to tolerate those urges. So the promise that by management will no longer be afflicted, it's at best, it's that you can learn how to tolerate those urges. And if you can tolerate all those urges, then eventually you can become a spiritual master and deliver the whole world. Hiding behind the pillar. Any other little points or comments? Anecdotes? Oh yeah. Anton.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you very much for the class.
Did you hear a lot of it, or just?
I'm sorry, I came a bit late, so I missed most of the class.
Okay.
So I'll ask a question that's probably not related to the class. I have two questions. First question is with karma. I mean, a lot of devotees, a lot of people say that karma is like if you can imagine a parent disciplines their child, so there is a reaction to our activities. My question in that regard is, why the link of action and reaction has been hidden from karma? We never understand for what action we have in this karmic reaction.
The law of karma and the workings of karma and the position of Lord Shiva, these are two subject matters which are very complicated and very difficult to understand. If one eats flesh, especially from a cow, it's not equal and opposite reaction. For every hair on the back of the cow, you have to take birth as a cow and be slaughtered for every little piece of cow flesh that you take. And good reaction, if you come to the temple in the months of Kartik and you offer one lamp then to Krishna, then you get liberation, you get so much benefit. So it's not equal and opposite, but there's always action and reaction. So the scriptures, the Shastras, they describe, Manu Samhita specifically describes punishments or recommendations or what's going to happen if you perform this action. So the judge who understands those laws knows how to apply, just like later on the four Kumaras. They get refused entry, so they get angry and they curse the doorkeepers. But before they curse, they contemplate. What is the offence that they've committed? How will it be rectified? So therefore they should come down to the material world and live 3 lifetimes as demons in order to experience what it means to be disrespectful and live in the material world.
It appears to me that if we would have observed the cause and effect of our actions, that would remove so much suffering from our life. Like if I would suffer for something and I would see that I have caused it, I would be able to go through it much easier.
So you have to see with intelligence, because we've had many, many lifetimes. We don't know where things are coming from this lifetime, from previous lifetime. The other day I hit my finger with a knife and blood was going everywhere. So I went and asked the next door neighbour if they could wrap it up with a bandage, and the little grandson was there. And he said, "Why'd that happen?" And I said, "Well, I should have lost my whole arm. But Krishna is being so merciful, he's just given me a token reaction. I've done something wrong." Our bottom line, our baseline understanding is, we're here in this material world, we've done something wrong. So anything that we get in reaction, tatenu kampam shushamikshmano, one has to learn to tolerate those things, understanding that they're due to one's past sinful activities. And if you tolerate and continue engaging in devotional service, then eventually liberation, devotional service, it's your rightful claim. But in the meantime, you have to tolerate. You can't say, "Why did that happen to me?" It happened because I did something wrong. And anything good that happens to us, we shouldn't say, "I've done something right," but it's a result of our past, previous good activities. And now we shouldn't become overwhelmed and overenjoyed. Look at the wonderful... No, I'm just reaping the benefits of something I've done good in the past. I should take that and offer the results then again to my spiritual master, to Krishna. Thank you. Thank you for relieving me of the good karma as well, because good karma, bad karma, both of them you have to come back and suffer You give somebody a donation, you've got to come back in your next life and get that back.
Thank you very much for your wonderful explanation, Shanti Prabhu. Second question is, there is a very popular scientist right now, got a lot of followers, and he makes a claim that most religions present God to be all-powerful and all-good. So he makes a claim and present it very logically that it can't be all-powerful and all-good because we have so much bad in the world. So it either he's all-powerful or all-good. Otherwise, we would have all-good manifestation of the world.
Well, that's a logical, material understanding of what goodness is and what power is. The argument is, okay, so the whole universe has been created, God is powerful enough to create it, he set it into action, and now he's stepped back and just letting it run he's not in control. That's another extension of that same argument. Another part of that argument is somebody asked Prabhupada, can God create something which is too heavy for him to lift? And he said, yes. Well, then he can't be God because he's created something greater than himself. So God can create things and he can appear not to be able to lift them, and then he can turn around the next moment, he can lift them. So God, it's not a definition or a prerequisite of God being everything working right. He set up everything, everything's perfect, he's completely powerful, he's completely in control, he's completely good. We throw the spanner in the works. It's our fault. We don't choose to follow the prescribed method for living in such a place. Therefore, the onus is on us. There's na-adate kasachit papam nas-chaiva sukritim vibhum. Krishna, he fulfills our desires, he puts it, but he doesn't take the responsibility for it. It's our responsibility. We create the nasty business. We create the bad reaction. We create the bad smell. We've got to own it. Krishna's he's impartial. He's impartial to the devotees and to the demons. He's lovingly predisposed to all living entities. He's good, supreme good. It's up to us how we reciprocate with him. If we reciprocate in the wrong way, then he gives us enough intelligence so we can go to hell. He helps us to forget him. That can only happen by his mercy. So you can listen to all these different popular expressions and ideas, but when you get the perspective of an advanced, pure devotee of the Lord, Srila Prabhupada and the scriptures, you understand the fallacies in such presentations. They're limited. Why do good things happen to bad people? Well, who knows how bad they were in a previous life, what circumstances were there. And also, what's the lesson to be learned? And sometimes the bigger you are, the harder you fall. Where if you're big, then you can have the rug pulled out from underneath you. And how you cope with that is also a lesson. Al Capone, he was having all sorts of success, robbing and pillaging and doing all sorts of things because of the results of his good karma in the past. He was reaping the benefits of good karma. At a certain time, by being engaged in so much violence and problems like that, that ran out. And his karma, his present karma caught up with him. He was imprisoned. So that's an example to people. You can live off your past good karma, but at a certain point it will run out. So you have to continue to learn about your ultimate goal, your ultimate destination, who you are, and where you've come from, and how to get back there. These other side distractions, these other Mayavad, impersonal presentations, they need to be unraveled and put in their proper perspective. We don't take their statements as just because they're authorities, because they've got more followers than anybody else, because they're promoted by the newspapers. That doesn't stand for anything in Krishna's eyes, for a learned man. Who listens to the newspapers? Who reads who watches the television? Vishnu Jan Prabhu.
I have a comment to the first question of Anton. So this is a typical question for people who started coming to their senses. I mean, why we don't see the link between the cause and the results of our karma? I mean, this is typical for people who started their spiritual life. Otherwise, Krishna hides that link because he does want us to enjoy. Because if you want to do something, but you see the clear connection to the results, which are not good, you won't do that. Not because you don't have that desire, but because you're afraid of the results. So there is no question of a free will. So you won't be able to enjoy, because that's why we came to this world, to enjoy without Krishna. But if we see the link means Krishna. That's his law. We won't be able to enjoy.
We won't be able to enjoy in the same old way. We'll have to develop new ways to enjoy.
Yeah, I understand. But we're talking about bad karma. Predominantly bad karma. Why bad things happen to good people? Mm-hmm. So, and why don't we see why we get, we reap that results? So we don't see that because Krishna hides it. Otherwise, we won't be able to enjoy fully.
Yeah, because the modus operandi of all living entities is anandamoya bhyasat. They're pleasure-seeking. So they want to enjoy. But once we understand that the material world is limited and that there is an ultimate place where there is eternal enjoyment, then we will turn our back on the limited situation here. We'll understand that this is not our home. It's only a temporary place, and we need to get access to that higher realm, that higher understanding.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
It's the posing that type of question is pertinent to people who are already kind of interested. I'll tell you a quick story how a friend of mine became a devotee. So he was a kind of a little bit of a bad guy. He was stealing things. Then he got married, and they went to the holidays with his wife. And they were camping on the sea, and one night, they put their wedding rings somewhere and went swimming, and then when they came back, they're gone. And then it's just dawned on him that there is a link between what I was doing. I was stealing, and my golden wedding rings were stolen, and he started kind of seeking what's going on. Is there any someone was looking at my activities or something like that?
You have to be pretty gullible to think you can get away with doing anything and everything. You have to be conscious that we're a part of a bigger plan, a bigger world, a bigger universe, and we have our part to play. And if we don't play our part properly, then the rug will get pulled out from underneath us. So to try and understand that, just to have the edict that I'm here to enjoy, and it's my right to enjoy unlimitedly, then that's a fool's paradise. Okay, thank you very much for your questions and comments and your attendance. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.